I'm trying to unpackage it and decipher really what is he saying, right? So you don't want to initiate the talks about going out to improve your roster. I'm hoping that's what he's saying, opposed to somebody initiating talks with you to get somebody from your team. So if you're telling me that somebody calls you and says, hey, we want to help you improve your team, we have a player that we believe you should trade for. I've never heard that before, all right? But I've heard that teams have called other teams to inquire about players on your roster, if so to speak, to try and see what interest you have in moving on from somebody else. And I think the conversation over the last several weeks has been, hey, you know, there's a guy out there in Randy Gregory who's going to be released from the Denver Broncos. You may want to sniff that out, and maybe you can offer them up something to get him because the Eagles and the Niners are looking at it. So you didn't initiate the conversation with Denver. You wanted Denver to call you and say, hey, do you want Randy Gregory back? We'll take a 5th-round pick for him.
That's true.
Oh, okay. Now, well, the phone never rang, so San Francisco calls and says, hey, don't cut him. We got something for you because we can use him. Oh, okay, we won't cut him. We'll trade him to San Francisco. So when I look at this, so when I started breaking it down, I think about the aggressive trading off-season, in-season approach that teams have. I think about John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, how aggressive they are to go get Christian McCaffrey, how aggressive they were to go get Jimmy Garoppolo years ago, how aggressive in the Randy Gregory situation. So now I look at the Cowboys in notable recent trades, and I go all the way back to 2018. Amari Cooper was a great one. That was that, boom, third down percentage goes up. Dak Prescott looks like a different quarterback. But then they disappeared. In 2022. They moved Amari Cooper, something that they probably shouldn't have done. We all could agree to that. They probably shouldn't have. They should have restructured the contract financially and figured that out so he could help CeeDee Lamb become even a bigger superstar in Dallas. And then obviously in 23, they went out and Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks in 23 are notable trades. But then I look at the Eagles. The Eagles traded back Deshaun Jackson. Darius Slay, they go get in 20. In 21, they get 2 first-rounders, a third-rounder for Carson Wentz. Then 22, they get A.J. Brown. 22 again, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Then 23 again, Swift. And then the Kevin Byard, just this October, they go get him. That's aggressive. They didn't sit. Howie didn't sit and wait for the phone to ring and say, hey, man, do you want this running back? Do you want this receiver? Do you want to get rid of Carson Wentz? No. They actively participated in this. So if you plan on extending the roster, Skip, and becoming something successful, you got to pick up the phone. You just have to.
Go, Richard. I mean, but it's the same thing he's always done. He's going to get the same results he's always gotten. That's the ridiculous part about this. Like, you must think your roster is too good to get better. The difference is between championship teams and this team is the championship teams don't ever feel like they're too good to get better. They're always exploring other options. They're always exploring avenues to get better, and it just seems stagnant. It seems lazy. It seems lazy if you're not going to pick up the phone and say, hey, are any of these guys available to help our team get better? Anybody out here got any players that you feel like, hey, you're ready to get rid of, that we can get better? Daniil Hunter, I hear, is available. Could he make that team better? 100%. Could they use another receiver? Could you explore a trade for maybe a Devontae Adams, a DeAndre Hopkins? Could they make you better? They could, but if you don't pick up the phone, you'll never know if they're available. You'll never know what it would take to get them, and you sit stagnant. And I'm sure that's frustrating for the fan base because they're like, man, these guys could definitely make us better. At least try. You see the Eagles in our own division, they're out there exploring. You knew that Howie Roseman was looking for a safety for weeks. That wasn't a surprise to anyone. Nobody is sitting out there like, oh, man, that's a surprise. Howie Roseman went and got a safety. He's been saying it for weeks. He's been calling everybody because that's how you get better. John Lynch, how much worse would they be if they didn't have Christian McCaffrey right now? Everybody's like, oh, man, a running back. Why would you get a running back? You guys have done well with undrafted. They wanted the best. They wanted the best running back in the National Football League who can be dynamic in the pass game, dynamic in the run game, and a game breaker. And guess what? He made them a better team. I just don't understand this from Jerry, and this is maybe why Jerry shouldn't be the GM, because it's almost like he's being too prideful. He's like, hey, I don't need to call anybody. People better call me.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you, Richard, to make your team better.
Yeah.
That makes a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
Right.
I wish I could disagree with both of you, but I cannot, because, Keyshawn, you might remember I predicted this yesterday. I told you Jerry will not respond to Howie Roseman because he's above that. His message to everybody, every time he speaks on his radio show or shows, because I think he has a couple of them in Dallas, his message is always, we're the Cowboys and you're not. I'm Jerry Jones and you're not. But speaking of not, my team has not been to an NFC championship game in 27 years because of that attitude, because of that holier than thou, because of that we're better than all of you, because we're not. We have nothing to show for it. For 27 years, we haven't sniffed a Super Bowl because we haven't even been to a championship game since Michael Irvin and Troy and Emmett made that one at the end of the 1995 season. Do the math on that.
Right.
It's Jerry saying, who cares about Howie Roseman? He's not going to react. Jerry wants to pre-act. If Jerry had some deal that he had cooked up because somebody in the organization like Will McClay had said, Jerry, how about this? Then maybe Jerry would jump on something and initiate a trade. I believe he initiated the Amari Cooper trade. I could be wrong about that. But again, Jerry wants to own the stage. He doesn't want to look like he's coming in somebody's wake.
But you are going to own the stage if you make your team better.
Well, obviously. But again, remember what happened at the end of last year. All that last month of the season, Jerry and Odell got to be bosom buddies, and Odell flew to Dallas a couple of times, and Jerry was on the record. We want him, we want him, we want him. We're close, we're close, we're close. Odell, as you know, Keyshawn, he just wasn't ready to play football at the end of last season because he was coming off a second ACL surgery on the same knee. And he tried, and he could run some on the treadmill, but you know, and I know, any right to left, hard, cut and stop stuff, he just wasn't ready to do that. When Jerry finally realized that, he finally said, well, we got to wait on this, but we would love to do it down the road. And now down the road is Odell's with the Ravens, okay? And he had the most targets that Lamar threw on Sunday against Detroit. 7 of them went to Odell Beckham Jr.
And he looked good.
He looked, again, is he Odell of the
but he still looked good.
He can still contribute and be a primary source of catches on your offense, okay? So to me, what's important, as you guys know, is at some point when your arch rival within the division keeps going out and getting difference makers. To me, Kevin Byard is a difference maker. But Richard, chime in on this because you weren't here what was it, yesterday when we talked about this. But listen, this guy is a playmaker who has owned Dak Prescott because he has 3 picks off Dak in 2 games. And on one of them at Jerry World in 2018 on a Monday night, he picked it in the end zone. It was Amari's first game as a Cowboy, and ran it all the way out to the star and celebrated on the star. And he's rubbed our noses in it. He picked Dak twice on the Thursday night. Wait, were you there on that one? It seems like you would have been. Were you at the Tennessee game? Right, last year?
I was.
Yeah, Cowboys at Tennessee. Remember, Byard got him twice in that game. One was a little bit lucky on a carom, but he picked his pocket on the second one. So my point is, these are difference makers, and you're sending a message to the Eagles locker room. We are all in. We are serious business. We are going to go win the Super Bowl that we think we should have won a year ago. And Jerry is like Nero. He's going to fiddle while Rome burns around him. So.
Well, Skip, like when I look at it, he doesn't have to necessarily counter what the Eagles or the Niners have done or whatever the case is. When you want to get better, when something is glaring and is not working and there's an opportunity for a transaction, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They got one guy at the quasi-receiver position, tied in slashing Kelsey. What did they do? They said, no. You know what? The Jets aren't using Mecole Hardman. Yeah. Let's go get him back because he can help us in this situation. They didn't sit and go, well, let's continue to develop Sky Moore. Well, we got Rice, a young kid. Let's continue to lean on him. They were active in going to get somebody. And that's my only thing with Jerry.
Okay, and by the way, Kansas City in the Super Bowl, who had the big punt return in the second half that changed the game? It was Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney, somebody they picked up from the Giants.
There we go again.
Just you got to be a little active in these situations.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be a lot of active in this situation, and it's frustrating. If I was a Dallas fan, I'd be really frustrated because of the pretentious nature of it. Now, if they were the Kansas City Chiefs and they've had the Kansas City Chiefs success over the last 6-7 years, you've been every AFC championship is the dang, Kansas City Chiefs Invitational, then sure, you can stand pat and say, hey, if nothing comes to us, we're good. We're going to be at the end of the season. But that hasn't been the case. You guys have been divisional and done every single season the last 2 years. And you're saying, hey, we don't need to get better. Bring us good players, and we won't call you. We don't need to call you. Our players aren't available. This roster is good enough. If you want to give us one of your best players for little to nothing, we'll take it. I just don't get it. And I just don't get Jerry, but maybe that's why they've been where they are.
Skip, I wish he would explain what he means by he does not initiate the call. Now, I don't.
He's Jerry Jones.
But I'm sitting here. I'm still sitting here trying to understand I don't initiate the call. Does that mean for players on your own team or players that you want to go get? If it's players you want to go get, how am I to know that you want my guy if you're not calling me?
You're Jerry Jones, okay?
But how am I supposed to know? I don't care who you are.
He wants people to watch from a distance. Oh, you've got a hole as your second receiver. You might be in the market for DeAndre Hopkins.
But I don't know that you have a hole because I don't know what you're thinking. I may think you have a hole. You may not think you have a hole, but I can see you can use a DeAndre Hopkins or Cortland Sutton, possibly a Michael Thomas. Like, you can use these guys. I see it. So why don't you pick up the phone, give us a call, and shake the tree, see if the leaves will fall, and see where it stands and where it goes. I don't know what's wrong with your Cowboys, man.
Nobody sees the world the way Jerry Jones sees the world, and that's the problem. Nobody sees that shining star the way Jerry sees that shining star. Nobody's going to call you and say, hey, we're going to do the research for you. We've looked at your team, and we've looked at the games you struggled, and we saw, hey, you may need this guy, this guy, this guy. We're going to give him to you, and we don't need much of anything. Give us a 7th rounder or something, and we give you a great player. We want your team to get better. Jerry, do your job. Help your team get better. Pick up the phone.
Okay, but remember, Jerry comes from the oil fields where he plunged, and he prides himself on being the ultimate negotiator, the shrewdest operator. So what he's saying to you is that to win a negotiation, you need them to come to you where they're beholden, they're opening the door. So, okay, give me your best shot. Give me, you want to trade Michael Thomas? Well, what do you want for Mike? Well, Jerry, really, we'd probably just take a second. Well, I'll give you a third. I'll get that. That's how Jerry.
Yeah, but I'm not calling you. I can call anybody and say if you're interested. So why would I call? What makes you think I'm calling you? If I want to trade somebody, I'd call anybody. But that's not the job.
Okay, maybe Jerry was using this to open the door to send the signal out to the rest of the league. I am open for business, but you need to call me.
Look, Skip. This is like, I guess, a woman going out there and saying, you know what? I'd be open to dating if somebody pursued me, got me the ring, made sure I was taken care of and all that, and I did no work for them at all. I didn't call them back. I didn't send them a text back. I didn't respond to their events. Nobody will ever know. Skip, at the end of the day, this ain't the oil fields. This ain't those kind of negotiations. There's 31 other teams out there, and they are trying to beat you. So they aren't going to help you if they can help it. They aren't going to help you. Even if a team is tanking or whatever the case may be, they're going to try to beat you. And your team isn't at the top of the mountain. So your leverage and your negotiating point isn't the same. No. If Kansas City Chiefs, negotiating point is different. The Philadelphia Eagles, negotiating point is different than the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, I do have to defend Jerry on 2 counts. He does pride himself on building through the draft. And you got to give it up to this man because he's done, and with a whole lot of help, he's done a tremendous job. Because if you look over the last decade, They have the second most homegrown, home-drafted Pro Bowlers to the Kansas City Chiefs. And you have to give Jerry this. I thought Dallas won the offseason because Jerry, I don't know, again, whether he initiated or not these trades, but as you know, he went and got a Brandon Cooks, who I thought was crucial to the mix as a deep threat. They haven't used him yet in that role.
Brandon Cooks is good.
He's good, but they stole him. They gave a fifth-rounder for him. And then Richard knows Stephon Gilmore very well, and again, is he still that former Defensive Player of the Year? Probably not, but he can play it with his head as well as anybody, and I was ecstatic to land him another fifth-round pick only for that. Those were 2 steals, which is why they won the offseason.
So, Skip, what your team, I want you to answer this for me. What is it that you see your team needs?
I think we need another receiver.
Oh,
yeah. And if, again, because you have whetted my appetite with your nepotism, because your nephew, your brother's son, who plays for the New Orleans Saints, who is really, really good, who just a couple of years back was the offensive player of the year. He's much healthier than he was. And you could make a case he should be right in the middle of his prime, right?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
he should, like he has arrived. He is that guy, and he's stuck with a bad quarterback. This is the one.
And he's on an expiring contract.
Yes.
Just so that you know, in full transparency,
yes,
he didn't say anything to me. I haven't talked to him in weeks.
Okay.
I just am looking at how you can improve your roster, your team, and help them get to where Michael says is the paradise in Vegas. So you say you need a receiver, nephew, Hopkins, Sutton, whatever. So if Jerry is waiting to initiate something to the offseason of 2024, it's going to be too late.
Yep.
The season ends in January. The Super Bowl is in February. It's going to be too late. If you're waiting for someone to call you, I'm having a hard time understanding exactly what Jerry said there.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time.
I also think he's sending the message that he really, really likes this team as is. He's saying we're 4-2. And he said yesterday, I wish we'd played a lot better against San Francisco. We're going to talk about this in a few minutes here. He said they can be had, the 49ers. Well, obviously they can because they just lost 2 straight games. So his point is he's being a little smug, a little above it all, like, we good, like we're fine. And Jerry used to tell me, go ahead, Richard. Yeah.
He is being smug. He is being, we're too good. And that's why they're going to go home early. That's why these fans continue to be frustrated with GM Jerry, because you think you're too good. And then when the time comes, when push comes to shove, your team goes home early. Those weaknesses are enhanced. Those chinks in the armor are exploited in a big way in playoff games, and you go home. You hope to make the division this year, but you may not. You may go home in a wild card because your GM, owner, whatever, sees the weaknesses on your team, sees the way your team struggles in these games, and says, I'm not going to do anything about it. Just keep playing, guys. You'll eventually win, and that's not true.
Yeah, they got about another week to make some decisions. The deadline is about a week away. So
October 31st.
Yeah, October 30th. So they got time. They got time to figure it out. Doesn't mean that they're not, but it certainly smells and seems as though they're not active enough at getting something done. Because, again, I hate to bring it back to the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
San Francisco 49ers went first, then the Eagles went.
They went. So, yeah, Richard, last quick question. I didn't give you a shot. Kevin Byard, how much will he help the Eagles? You played secondary position, obviously.
Tremendously. I mean, he's an all-pro in this National Football League. He's an elite safety. He's been an elite safety. He has a great ball skills. He has great ability to read the quarterback and make plays on the football. He's going to make a ball-hawking defense even better. They have all pros all around this defense now. It's tough.
Jerry, are you listening to Richard Sherman? Are you listening to Keyshawn Johnson? Heck, are you listening to me? I think not. Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.